Good morning. Welcome to today's hearing of PK News for the Vale, Acton, London W3 7SB. My name is Councillor Anthony Kelly. I'll be chairing today's meeting. I'm also joined by Councillor Amajit Jammu and Nigel Sumner. We are today's subcommittee. There's also Hatum Zeb, who is legal advisor to the committee. Cornelia Hardin is clerk to the subcommittee and be minutes in the meeting, and she's also shadowed and being observed with her colleagues, Mr. Brumfield and Mr. Roberts. In accordance with procedure, I would invite the licensing authority to present the application for review, hear and call upon any witnesses in respect of whom has been given permission and have been given and answer any questions put to them. I'll then invite the premises to make their representation and answer any questions, and then invite the parties to sum up their respective cases. At the end of the hearing, the subcommittee, accompanied by the legal advisor and the committee clerk, will retire to consider its decision. Decision will be given at the end of the meeting and confirmed within 5 working days. If we're unable to come to a decision, you'll also be notified of that and notified of that in 5 working days. So that brings me to Mr. Deere, who present the application for review.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is an application submitted by myself on the 9th of March of this year for PK News, as you've already given the address of for the Vale W3. This has arisen from 2 visits to the premises, one on Tuesday the 14th of February 2017, when the premises were visited and Mr. and Mrs. Sette were present in the premises. Mr. Sette is the premises license holder and has been since 2013. And the purpose of the visit was explained, and 20 packets of illicit cigarettes and 6 pouches of roll your own tobacco were found. And on that occasion, a first and final warning was issued. The property was signed over for destruction. We returned on Thursday, the 9th of September of last year, and in the premises, Mr. Sette was there. Sorry, Mr. Sette Senior was there, and after producing our identification, we stated the purpose of our visit. We went to the rear store, asked Mr. Sette if there's any property on the premises, and he began tidying boxes in a small storeroom to the left of the counter when you're behind it. He was asked to move aside, and he seemed to throw a package to the back of that area. It was retrieved, and it contained 15 packets of illicit cigarettes. I inspected behind the counter, and in a black jacket that Mr. Sette stated belonged to his wife, I found another 6 packets concealed in the pockets and sleeves of the coat. So in total, over the 2 visits, 820 cigarettes and 350 grams of roll your own tobacco were seized. The unpaid duty on the products amounts to £450. I have put there that the premises license holder and designated premises supervisor, who is Mr. Jahinga Sette, is found to promote the licensing objective of crime, prevention of crime disorder. Since submitting this application, Chair, and the rest of the committee, I have had a very positive dialogue with Mr. Kamal Sette, Mr. Sette's son, who basically has been was agreed and has promoted himself that he's going to take a more proactive position in the business. It is a real family business, and I think that's highlighted by today, where I don't think we've ever had a backdrop of bottles of Jack Daniels and spirits like that on a hearing. Mr. and Mrs. Sette are normally in the shop on their own, and it's a premises that opens at 6 in the morning and closes at 11 o'clock at night, if obviously the business is there. But I presume I do appreciate business has not been good recently. Looking at the premises license, I've in fact put a typo there. I said it's got extensive conditions, which is not correct. It's got more conditions than a lot of licenses on this borough. It's got CCTV, public safety conditions, asking people to leave the area quietly, and a challenge 25. It's also got a refusals book. So whereas I've asked for, I stated that I believe that this license should be revoked, I now believe that this license would probably benefit the business more, because it's an area that has already lost numerous of licenses, with more conditions put on, and more extensive conditions on that license. I'd like to also add that I have been to the premises before and after this application was put in and inspected, and it's been compliant. But obviously, as Mr. Sette had been finally given his final warning back in 2017, obviously the course of action was to review this license, and that is the application, Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sette, senior or junior, no matter. You will get an opportunity to speak and talk about what you suggest and what's going forward. But do you have any specific questions to Mr. Deere on the details of what he has said?
At this time, thank you.
That's very kind. Councillor Jammu, or do you have any questions to Mr. Deere?
No, I don't, Chair. Thank you.
And Councillor Sumner.
Well, okay.
No, you're fine. Can't see on my screen because I've only got 4 of you that I can see at one time. Okay. Well, I have some questions, but to be fair, I'm not sure whether Mr. Perhaps need to look through the details of your yeah. Just bear with me. So to confirm, Mr. Sette, your licensed premises that opens at 6 o'clock, is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. And when do you start serving alcohol?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. And on Sundays?
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock.
10.
10 o'clock.
Fine. And yeah, I mean, how do you meet that challenge of people coming in to the shop outside of those hours asking for alcohol?
They do come, and they come quite often, to be honest. But of course, we have to comply with the licenses. And to be honest, early morning alcohol isn't good for anyone. So we do tell them that to please come later on when it is permissible.
Okay.
Anything outside of those hours, we do not serve alcohol to customers.
Sure. And obviously your bottles there are behind you, so you have to give them to your customers.
Exactly.
How is your beer stored?
The beers,
Yeah.
yep, they are in the fridge, the cold ones, and they are also on the left-hand side of the premises.
Shutter down on that.
But usually the shutters are down. So there's 2 shutters on the fridge. One.
That's fine. That's all I need to know. It's that magic word. You put the shutters down. Thank you. Okay, that's good. And what's your ABV offer in terms of lager and ciders?
Up to 5%.
Okay, so you don't serve anything above 5%.
No.
In your lager. So okay. So your ABV is 5%.
5%, correct.
Yeah. Okay. I just wondered if anyone could help me. Is that in the Is that in the conditions?
Chair, yes, it is. It is a condition. It's actually 5.5, which
Okay.
would mean, that in theory, that Mr. Sethi could sell
Sure.
one more type of beer over 5%.
Okay, that's fine. It's fine. Okay. And you have CCTV available and it's working.
It is indeed, yes.
Yeah. Bob, have you needed to see the CCTV?
I haven't, Chair, but one of my recommendations would be, if you're considering putting these extra conditions on, would be to probably update the CCTV in the shop.
Okay, I'm getting a nod of approval there from the applicant's son. Mr. Sethi, is it Jarnail? Is your name Jarnail or Carnell?
Joginder.
No, Joginder's the older, the father.
Myself, oh sure.
Yeah.
My name is Kamal.
Carnell.
Kamal.
Come on. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Are you a license holder? Have you done the license training?
I'm not currently. I have applied for it just recently.
Okay. And you're is Mr. Joginder's done recent training?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But we do understand the trends of sort of challenge 25.
You'll undertake to undergo
Indeed.
recommended training, yeah? Yeah. I mean, it's a, yeah. Sorry, just okay. Okay. I think that's all the questions I have to the applicant at the moment.
Chair, can I perhaps just intervene for a moment?
Yeah, we got to get back on track here with the checklist. Yeah, sorry, Hattie.
It's Hatun Zeb here, legal advisor to the panel. Chair, you may want to clarify from Mr. Deer what his proposed conditions are in view of the review that he's brought before the subcommittee. Within the papers that are in the agenda pack, there are conditions, and he's alluded to the fact that those should be reviewed. Has something specifically been prepared for the subcommittee to consider once you've heard from Mr. Sethi in regards to his submissions?
Do we have a page number we might be able to refer to, Bob?
Chair, no, unfortunately, this was, the word is a very fluid conversation between myself and Mr. Sethi. I did say that I was going to hopefully send him some conditions, but due to other resource issues, we've had to, I haven't been able to do it. Okay. Obviously, I could do within the 5 days of your decision.
If I could just refer that the committee, it's page 26 of the bundle, the agenda pack. It's a matter for you, and clearly it will be something that you will consider once you retire. If indeed you want to go through the conditions that are currently on the license, and just for Mr. Deer to highlight exactly what it is that he's saying he would be minded to accept in the event you were to consider it. Or you may want to hear from Mr. Sethi first, perhaps, and then go back to those conditions.
Okay. Yeah, I think Bob can perhaps have a look at page 26 whilst we're listening to Mr. Sethi, and perhaps he can come back with some clarification.
Indeed. Thank you.
Mr. Sethi, this is quite unusual because you sort of you're not contesting the details, and you've in a sense let us lead you. This is the opportunity now, perhaps. Sorry. So, should like premises to, just to state your case about what happened, and what you hope to do moving forward. And you're very welcome to talk about those conditions as well. Yeah. Oh, you don't need to say anything at all. It's entirely up to yourself.
As for the conditions, I'm not quite sure. Hence, just because we haven't received.
Do you have the? Do you have the agenda?
We do. Yes.
Yeah. So it's page 26. But I mean, meanwhile, you just might want to talk about what's happened and what you want to do.
Sure.
You know, in a general sense, moving forward.
Indeed. So I just want to state that unfortunately the area is railed with foreign cigarette sellers, and a lot of our competitive businesses also sell them, as Bob Deere will be aware. And unfortunately, we also fell into the trap of sort of being exposed to these sellers. But of course, after a visit from Bob Deere, and I was there personally myself, this was the first time that I personally witnessed it. And I had a good conversation with Bob Deere in regards to how it negatively affects the community and our consumers. And I've explained it to my father, the negative effects, which is sort of, don't sell it, it encourages people to smoke more. It sort of allows the youth to have it more accessibly. And I can sort of now assure you that he totally understands, as do I, of the negative effects of this. And going forward, we've taken measures to ensure that this doesn't happen again. Any customers that have requested foreign cigarettes post this, we have outright rejected and told them that we do not do this. Even people who have come in to try and sell us the products, we have told us that we are not involved in this activity anymore. My father's been running this business for nearly 2 decades, and he's built and established some positive relationships with the community and customers since then. And it would be tragic to sort of let that break down. So I can assure you from my side, I've also left my personal job in order to help Dad run the business. It hasn't been easy for us. I don't want to condone anything or make any excuses for it. It's not justifiable, but we're taking the right sort of actions going forward to ensure that this won't happen again. Since the visit from Bob Deere, I can sort of 100% guarantee that you probably did not receive any complaints or reports in regards to this. Hence why I'm assuming there was no representatives either. But yeah, we'll try the best to sort of comply with the license going forward. And my father also understands that. The license is crucial for the business. It makes up nearly, I would say, 60 to 70% of the business sales. And without it, we would just have to shut the business, unfortunately. So we understand how important it is as well to keep that license, and we will do the utmost to make sure that all the measures and rules are complied with going forward.
Thank you very much. That's very useful. Mr. Joginder Sette, I just sort of want to give you the opportunity to your dad to verify what you said in a few words, that he understands. Perhaps we could hear for a moment from him. I accept that you're representing his behalf, but perhaps if you could just speak for a moment.
Sure, I will let him speak. Please just do it.
Well, yeah.
His English is not the best.
No, I understand. We're accustomed to this, but but you know, when he spoke earlier, I could hear him quite clearly.
Sure. Just give me one moment.
Yeah. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm very apologize. Yeah, I'm very apologize.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you happy with what your son has said moving
Yes.
forward?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And that obviously there's consequences to obviously to not following the conditions.
Yeah.
Right then. Thanks very much, Mr.
I'm very apologize. Yeah, I'm very apologize.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jaginda. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Yeah. One question: Do you sell single cans of beer, Mr. Sethi?
No. No, 4-pack.
You don't sell single cans of beer.
4-pack. Single can बेच नहीं 4-pack है लेकिन single can बेच नहीं.
Sorry, he does mean we do sell single cans.
But you have the 4-pack.
And 4-packs.
But we
Okay.
also sell them in multi-packs.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I mean, I've no questions really. Councillors Jammu and Councillors Sumner.
I think you've got to the nub of the matter, and it seems to be going along a course that we can agree.
Okay. Councillor Jammu.
Yes, I was going to say the same, Chair. I think, we've covered everything there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So, Mr. Dare, would you like to perhaps go through briefly, succinctly, the conditions that you... I did speak about personal licence training.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, basically the licence, even though it's 9 years old and hasn't been touched since then, basically there are a lot of conditions that you will see on a lot of applications that come before you, but they are not in a very good format, and I think they need tidying up to make them more effective for compliance and for enforcement. There's already a condition on the licence for a personal licence holder. There's a training manual has to be on the premises. CCTV to be installed with 31-day recording capacity. A refusal book will be kept in store. No stock or sale of high-strength beers and ciders above 5.5. And in fact, there's an incident book there as well. I think because what has brought us here today, the only, well, I say they need perhaps tidying up, which I could do perhaps during your decision time, and send a copy over to Mr. Sethi and yourselves. But the only other one I would look at is probably, or two, sorry, that you should only buy, which actually is on here, but in a not very good format, that all stock to be brought from a reputable wholesaler or cash and carry. I think if they have to be registered, I think would have to be added to that within the HMRC scheme. And also one extra one, that no alcohol would be stored on the shop floor or behind the counter, i.e. single cans, to perhaps relieve the temptation if somebody came in looking for a beer before hours, they could be easily accessible behind the counter. And obviously we've got the shutters, so that stops them taking them themselves. But obviously if any beer is stored behind the counter, it may make a temptation to take a chance, shall we say.
Hattie, I sort of look at you because how we going to, I'll come back to you in a moment, Councillor Jammu. Actually, Councillor Jammu, you go first because.
thank you, Chair. Because it relates to what Bob just said. I just wanted a little bit of clarification, Bob. Does that include like the sending of miniatures and stuff like that? Because there are.
It would, obviously, thank you, Councillor, to remind me, is yes, that would have to be put on the license. There'd be no sale of miniatures below 20 CLs.
Thank you.
Do you sell miniatures at the moment, Mr. Sethi?
We do, yes.
You do?
लेकिन सानू नहीं कहा गया कि
Yes.
miniature ना बेचो.
Can I just clarify that Bob Deere means that you cannot sell miniatures before the permitted hours?
No,
Or
not at
in
all.
general,
Not at all.
not at all.
It basically, Mr. Sevi, it will stop you selling the small 5 CL bottles and the 10 CL bottles.
Okay.
Anything above a quarter would be okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Hattie, there's a bit of V going on here. I'm not quite clear how we're going to accomplish all of this.
Yes, so there's a couple of things, if I may just advise you. Firstly, going back to Mr. Kamal Sethi, he indicated earlier that he had left his current job to essentially now participate in the family business. It may be helpful for you, Chair, just to confirm with Mr. Kamal his intentions. Is he intending on becoming a DPS at the premises and taking full responsibility for the premises, so that you have that information to hand when you retire? I think that clarification is important. I note, and certainly it's just an observation, Mr. Sethi clearly isn't represented in these proceedings, so I'm not sure whether he's aware of the powers of this committee. So for the purposes of Mr. Sethi, in fairness, during this hearing, this licensing subcommittee, in coming to a decision, has a number of options available to it. And those options are as follows, and they include, they can modify the conditions of your license, which includes adding new conditions or any alteration or omission of an existing condition, for example, by reducing the hours of opening or by requiring door supervisors at particular times, etc. The second thing they could do is exclude a licensable activity from the scope of your license, for example, to exclude the performance of live music or playing of recorded music or something to that effect, where it's not incidental to music. Another thing they can do is that they can remove the designated premises supervisor, for example, because they consider that the problems are a result of poor management at your premises. Another thing they can do is they can suspend the license for a period not exceeding 3 months, or they can revoke the license. Now, Mr. Sethi, the application from Mr. Deere initially was to revoke your license, but it appears during this hearing that he's now, through discussions with you, accepted that it may be that if the committee are minded to add conditions to your license. Now, I don't know whether Mr. Sethi has had sight of the 182 guidance, and my advice to the panel is that any decision that the panel make in regards to adding or removing conditions have to be relevant for the purposes of the review. Now, I know that Mr. Deere is inviting the panel, and I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong in suggesting this, to essentially review the license in its entirety and the conditions associated with it. But as the panel will no doubt be aware, both in the local authority's policy and indeed the guidance, your decision or any if you are minded to go along with the recommendation from Mr. Deere, have to be relevant to what is before you. And what is before you is evidence of illicit cigarettes that have been found on the premises on 2 separate occasions. It also appears that Mr. Sethi has cooperated with the officer, which is why he is suggesting that conditions be attached. So any step that the panel take has to be proportionate and relevant to what is being suggested. So my advice is that this is not, it wouldn't be entirely correct for us to review the entire conditions, some of which are not relevant. There doesn't appear to be any evidence before this panel in regards to underage sales, for instance, in view of the other licensing objectives, any public disorder as a result outside of the premises. So you need to be mindful of the entire picture. Of course, if Mr. Sethi is in agreement that he's happy for certain conditions to be reviewed, then that would be something that committee would consider. But on the face of it, from what you have before you in terms of evidence and what you've heard, it wouldn't be proper for you to be reviewing the entire conditions of the license if there is no complaint as regards to this premises, in view of the fact that it's been in operation for some time. It appears, unless Mr. Day is able to provide you with any information otherwise, and of course there are no other representations from anybody else apart from the review. I'm not sure if that assists you, Chair.
Yeah, it's okay.
It may be.
It does assist us. Okay. Just some. Okay, I'll just give everybody an opportunity to say something if they wish to. Mr. Sethi will go last because, in a sense, we've got most to gain or lose. So if I just go to the panel members, councillors, Councillor Jammu.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to just speak to Jagenda Sethi because he's the main DPS person at the moment. I just want a little bit of clarification. Does this mean that your son Kamal is going to be joining you, or does this mean that Kamal's going to take over and you're going to retire?
No, I'm just currently assisting at the moment.
So where's the future heading?
So the reason I joined is, I don't want to get too personal into this. My mother's not well. She just recently had a stroke. Conditions aren't great for my father at the moment. So just for sort of family support, I'm here helping and assisting him. Of course, there are certain things like Bob did mentioned of like the negative effects, what we should be doing, etc. So I'm here to sort of explain to him, support him, and make sure he understands what needs to be happening going forward. And I'm assisting him currently and showing him examples to help him going forward. As for the future, I'm not able to tell you with a definite doubt whether I will be staying here or not.
So, Chair, if I may. So for us, basically, Mr. Jagenda Sethi, we need assurances more than anything else that things are going to be running according to law from now on.
And that's what I sort of said was.
Sorry, I'd like to hear that from Mr. Jagenda Sethi, please.
Well, he has apologised and sort of verified that he's going to do as his son advises and as the committee advises. But
sorry, the reason he's not, like I said, he's not very well spoken in English, so you won't be able to sort of understand what he means. But since Bob Day attended the property and did tell us that we shouldn't be doing this, it's been roughly 8 to 9 months, and hence why that was the assurance that this would not happen. I can assure you, you shouldn't have received any sort of complaints or reports from the council or the public that we are doing this. So the sort of under a year of us complying with the rules should hopefully give you the assurances that this will not be occurring in the future.
Thank you.
yeah, Mr. Sethi, are you giving up you don't need to tell me what career, but are you sort of you're taking a pause from your other career?
Indeed.
Yeah, fine, okay. And obviously you'll be looking to go back to that career. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay. Councillor Sumner is not indicating.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Yeah.
I have something to say.
So just I don't see you on my screen, but
Sorry about that.
I can see you now.
I just wanted to say I'm awfully sorry to hear about Mum and her unwell. Okay, are we able to accept or can we ask the family, will they accept all the notifications that Mr. Deere has put here for prevention of crime and disorder? So we can assume that things like CCTV and etc. that can all be added to the schedule, or is our are we being told by Ms. Sebb that we shouldn't be dealing with that? Could we ask whether Mr. Sette is happy to go along this route and we can write it into our schedule or not?
Sure. So things like the CCTV are already on schedule to be updated anyway, just because I think we just need a little bit more quality on the CCTVs. But as for Bob saying that they needed sort of 30 days recording, it already has that feature.
Are we talking about things like the central alarm, the safe, cash in tills, this sort of stuff? Are we talking about that? Can we put that into our...
Chair, if I may just refer to the guidance, it may assist the committee. So paragraph 1120 of the guidance states, in deciding which of the powers to invoke, and those are the powers for Mr. Sette's benefit that I mentioned earlier, that the subcommittee have, it is expected that licensing authorities should, so far as possible, seek to establish the cause or causes of the concerns that the representations identify. The remedial action taken should generally be directed at these causes and should always be no more than an appropriate and proportionate response to address the causes of concern that instigated the review. I go back to my advice earlier that what instigated this review was the sale of illicit tobacco at the premises. Further to that, paragraph 11.21, just for your knowledge, for example, licensing authorities should be alive to the possibility that the removal and replacement of the designated premises supervisor may be sufficient to remedy a problem where the cause of the identified problem directly relates to the core management decisions made by that individual. Now, if it's suggested by Mr. Kamal Sethi on behalf of his father, who appears to be listening to this hearing, that they may be amenable to some of the conditions, and if the subcommittee are minded to go that way when they do deliberate on this matter, then what may be a sensible way forward is if Mr. Deere, as he expressed earlier, drafts some conditions which are relevant to the review that he brings before this subcommittee, shares them with Mr. Sethi, and then those conditions can either then be put to the committee whilst they retire for them to consider, or indeed the committee can come back into the meeting to have that open discussion with Mr. Sethi and Mr. Deere if there's any questions, to ensure that there's openness and transparency in the way that any decision is then made.
Okay. We appear to be going in circles, and I'm as guilty of keeping us in that circle as more guilty than anyone else. So I want to try and bring this to a close. So any comment, Bob?
Can I just ask one question?
You can go last, Mr. Sethi, and then any comment, Bob?
Chair, I take on board what Ms. Sebb said. Obviously, the conditions on the licence, the majority that I've asked for are there already. Obviously, it's 9 years, written 9 years ago. The extra one would be about buying from wholesalers registered under the HMRC scheme, which obviously would cover the 2 visits that we made, i.e. illicit stock being bought somewhere else. And I think probably the only, checking my notes, is to do with the sale of miniatures and the stock behind the counter.
Okay.
Those would have to be agreed by Mr. Sethi.
Okay, that's fine. Mr. Sethi, the licensing authority, i.e. Bob, and ourselves as committee members, we're committed to living incomes and people making a living. We do not recommend and suggest these conditions for businesses to fail. We suggest them and recommend them because we believe it encourages better business. So just with that comment, I'll let you go last.
Thank you. Whilst I was in, whilst my father agrees to the alcohol change as well, I was just asking, what connection has that got to do with the tobacco? Just out of curiosity, because with selling of alcohol, we've never had any sort of issues and always complied with the rules.
I'll make a comment on that, Mr. Sette. It's all linked. It's all linked. People that come to buy cheap tobacco are often the type of people that are street drinkers, generally antisocial. You know, it's linked with health, hospital admissions, the sale of miniatures. Our recent policy was to not have miniature sales in off licenses, because it creates a spiral effect. So it's a policy thing to do with upholding the licensing objectives.
Sure.
We believe you're going to have less incidents of antisocial behaviour on your footpaths outside your business if you don't sell miniatures.
Sure, sure, no problem at all. We'd be happy to.
Thank you. Anything else?
That's all. Thank you. I just wanted to sort of give the assurances to the committee that we totally understand where you're coming from and the conditions that you'd like to add if you think they are beneficial to the business. Thank you.
Your representation has been very useful to us. Unless we've got anything else, Hattie, maybe retire?
Not for me. Just wanted to clarify how are you intending on proceeding? Are you expecting Mr. Dare to draft any conditions regarding the review for Mr. Sette to consider before they come before you?
Yeah. Bob, I'd imagine you've got it ready by now.
Yes, Chair, I can send them over to Mr. Sette, and obviously...
So Mr. Sette, you need to stand by your email and just reply to Mr. Dare as soon as possible, and then we can come back. Yeah.
Yes, and if Mr. Dare could copy in Ms. Harding so that she has that, she's aware of what's happening in terms of timing.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
So the quicker you have that email exchange, the quicker we can come back and give a decision. So, but I'd anticipate that to be 12:15. So we'll come. So you'll be asked to leave this. You'll be
asked to leave this room.
You'll be exited from this room, and then you'll be able to return to the room, and then we go live again with the decision.
12:15. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Bob, you've got Mr. Sette's mobile number, haven't you?
Yes, indeed, Chair. I'll also give him a ring just to confirm he's got the email. Yeah. And if he wants to discuss anything, clarify.
And Cornelia has as well. So, yeah, if we can go off the live feed. Thank you very much.